and welcome to Sunday Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial net center, Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. We're bringing you up to speed with what is playing out in politics and in the entire polity. And I can tell you for free that it looks like the horizon around Kano politics, as far as the NNPP is concerned, hasn't settled just yet. I remember there were conversations around whether or not the governor is defecting to the All Progressives Congress. We've seen pictures, according to some of the pictures we've seen, of him having maybe conversations or meetings or visits, if you will, with a member of the APC. As we speak, the APC has 28 governors out of the 36 governors in its fold. So if Governor Yusuf joins them, which he hasn't spoken officially, I spoke with the National Publicity Secretary of the party. Well, he said, even though some members of the party do not agree with him, it looks like he hasn't said anything, but if he goes, they wish him well. But that's not the conversation right now. A video had emerged where the leader of the NNPP, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who leads the Kwankwasiya movement, has begun to say a few things around the fact that perhaps whatever conversation the governor may be having with the ruling All Progressives Congress, it may not be in the mix of it. Perhaps the offer is not as clear as it should be. And in that conversation he had with his people, spoke in Hausa, and I had to make someone help us interpret it. He said, look, nothing is an offer as far as it's concerned. Perhaps nothing appealing, in me paraphrasing, but he would rather go to a place where he can get a number one or number two position. Now, people are speculating as to whether or not it is the ADC or any other political party. But that's as far as the NNPP is concerned. So the next few weeks or days literally will be very interesting in national politics as far as realignment is concerned. But let me also tell you something. The National Assembly, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, has now released the CTC, or the copy of the harmonized version, if you will, of the Nigeria Tax Administration, Nigerian tax, and all the tax laws. There are 4 of them. 4 all are now in operation. You know, there has been this controversy as to whether there are discrepancies, annotations, addition, or insertions, and all of that. So right now, this is what I will tell all of us who are citizens. So you already had the initial one that was released by the government. It is marked official release, 4 of them. And now you have the one that the National Assembly said, this is what we passed, that has also been released. So we, you and I, now have a responsibility to get to look at the one that we've seen before now and the one that the National Assembly has said, this is what we passed. And I took a look, just perusing through, and I saw something in section, let me be sure, that should be section 60, section 40, actually section 41(8) of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, which has to do with the administration of tax. Now, one of the things I realized in both section 41 and section 61 is to the fact that in the one that was released initially, there are the new one, sorry, the ones that were released before, there are more sections in that particular law. One has 10, one has 9, and the other one has 8, and the other one has 7. So, but where I'm going to with all of this, if you look at this section, if my producer can hold this particular section, as I'm looking at it, I can't find it in the one that the National Assembly has released. Although the one the National Assembly has, subsection 3 is there, I looked through to see, and I saw this in the one that was officially released, but the one the National Assembly has now released doesn't have this segment. So whether it's an oversight, a mistake, an omission, I do not know. We're just putting this out so that the authorities can explain something. So you can see this section says, for the purpose of levying any distraint under this section, more like holding onto your property because you're not paying tax and all of that, any officer duly authorized by the relevant tax authority may execute any warrant of distraint, and if necessary, break open any building or place in the daytime for the purpose of levying such distraint. Underline breakdown in the daytime. And the relevant tax authority may call for police assistance, and the police shall, when so required, aid and assist in the execution of any warrant of distraint in levying the distraint. So if you look at the exact law, so this is the Nigerian Tax Administration Act. This is the version that was initially released. But from the one that has now been released by the National Assembly, this particular section or subsection or clause is not there, although it has a subsection 3. We can even go on and on, but that's not a conversation for today. I've sent this to the right people to say, please, can we get an explainer? So, for instance, in the section 41, subsection 8 of the previous one, yes, this section is in the one that was released before by the government, which is a good one for the Nigerian people, by the way. A party dissatisfied with the decision of the High Court may appeal to the Court of Appeal, while an appeal against the judgment of the court shall be to the Supreme Court. But the difference here is that this section is not necessarily found in the one that the National Assembly has released, because the National Assembly's version ends in subsection 7, but the previous one ends in subsection 8. So I don't know what is going on. Maybe there's been some explanation, because I know when it comes to passing laws in the National Assembly, the executive takes the law to the National Assembly, both chambers bicameral look at those laws, annotate on them, leave some, remove some, add some, whatever, and then they harmonize it. They bring the harmonized version to the both chambers, and they look at it clause by clause to be sure that they agree. So, for instance, Senate could say 50 million, House of Reps could say 100 million. The conference committee of the harmonization committee will look at it and reconcile a position. Now, that position reconciled will now be forwarded to both houses to say, do we all now agree? When it's passed, it now goes to the clerk. After from the clerk, they have what they call the clean copy. I heard that in March last year, they passed a resolution that even the clean copy should come back to look at it again, that what they have annotated further on has been annotated on. So the reason I'm putting this out is just for information, for you to look at, and for the authorities to provide an explanation. There could be an explanation, but that you also do your due diligence, because there are two sets of laws right now, two sets of documents, one that has been released before and the one that has now been released from the National Assembly. Do your comparison, hashtag Channels TV, and we'll create a conversation around this so that we can be properly informed and explain to what exactly is going on. Yeah. Let's talk about national security. It's very heartbreaking to see what is going on as far as national security is concerned, despite the efforts of government. Now, President Bola Tinubu has now directed Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Service Chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, and the Director General of the Department of State Services to track down and apprehend the perpetrators of the Kasumwandaji attack in Niger State. The attack saw over 30 people killed in a deadly attack by suspected terrorists at the Kasumwandaji market in a demo community located in Bogu local government area of Niger State. President Tinubu has now ordered the security agencies to ensure that the terrorists were swiftly brought to justice. It says the terrorists have retested actually the resolve of the Nigerian government and its people. They must therefore face the full consequence of their actions and their criminal actions. The president says no matter who they are and what their intent is, they must be hunted. In fact, an update to that story is the fact that the death toll has now moved from just 30 to about 55. That's what we got from our correspondent just before we came on air. So it's a very sad developing story. So let me bring in my guest. Given what is playing out in international politics, how can we strengthen our national politics, our national security? So formidable. I'm sure you've been following international news. Maduro was the former Venezuelan president, if I can call him that now, is in the hands of the United States government over that incident, over that the raid that happened. When they picked him up, he's going to face narcotic-related charges and all of that. But let me bring in my guest, because there's an interplay of national sovereignty, geopolitics, and national security that is important to all of us. Commodore Promise Dapa is a retired naval officer. He joins us virtually from Port Harcourt, the River State capital. Commodore, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Also joining us is Professor David Awara. He's of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program. Oh dear. Okay, maybe when we get Prof, we'll come to him. Commander, let's come to you in just a moment. Let's go from outside to what we're playing at. Now we're seeing that it looks like there's a new world order, because there are two broad conversations we're going to have today. One is national security. The other one has to do with politics with my next set of guests. It's the fact that some people are beginning to say that even national sovereignty in itself is no longer absolute. If the United States can get into Venezuela, just like what they did to Manuel Noriega in Panama in 1989, just literally making a mess of the Westphalian sovereignty of the 15th century in 1648. We now see that invasion, abduction, and is going to face justice. Now, there are so many nuances to it, so many arguments for and against this. But the New World Order seems to be like the United Nations is just sitting down and watching, and these new powers, or these world powers, are executing actions based on what they call their convictions. But what do you make of what is playing out in geopolitics, and how should Nigeria begin to prepare itself, perhaps, in terms of its own national security? Because we're not far away from some of these things. It looks very far away, but we may not be far away if we don't build ourselves and be vigilant as much as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. You see what is, like you said today, in the world order, in the international arena, the international system, what we are witnessing is a paradigm shift from the liberal world order, where multilateralism, international law holds sway, to the old order of realism, where the sovereignty, the security of the state is paramount, where might is right, where nations exert their superiority by their military might. And in that world order, we said that there is no central authority, that anarchism reigns supreme. So every nation is for himself. Every man must fight to defend himself. And that order is based primarily on your military capability. But if you observe, there was a gradual shift from that order to a state where nations begin to talk of human security, liberalism, building multilateral corporations where nations can come together to enforce a new world order. But all that is beginning to pine away as we see what is happening in the war. We saw the incident in Ukraine, Russia trying to bully Ukraine. We saw what's happening in Israel, Gaza, and today is the turn of Venezuela. Like you rightly said, we don't know whose turn it is next. So there's a shift from the liberal concept of international relations to the realist dimension, the realist strategy or theory in international relations, where nations, the security of nations are determined, the security of individuals are determined by the security of nations. Because we saw that, we can see that under the liberal system, people, like even Nigeria, if you watch our security documents, emphasis is laid more on security of individuals. You hear what they talk about, a lot about human security, that resources must be voted more for the upkeep, for the economic well-being, medical well-being of the people. That if the people are well and happy, that the country will be secured. But we are seeing all that now has been thrown through the window, that unless a country, the sovereignty of a nation is secured, the people cannot be secured. We have seen presidents building fortresses for themselves and forgetting the security of the nation. Now it's becoming very clear that even the president cannot be secured unless the country itself is secured. There can be no secured individual unless the country is secured. So what does that tell us? That countries must begin to pay attention to national security. The frontiers of the nation must be secured. Until the frontier, the country is secured, the individual cannot be secured. And that has always been my position. And that's why I'm not a student of bread and butter politics or bread and butter security, that because there is hunger and that's why the country is not protected. Under the liberal concept, the attention of insecurity moves from outside to internal. People begin to see that security comes more from internal when the people are not happy, when the needs of the people are not taken care of. But we are beginning to see a new kind of security threat now that comes mainly from outside. And that one is more deadly. It gives no time to negotiate. So they just come pick whoever they want to pick. One strike of a cruise missile can just destroy the whole country and others. So to me, I think it's a wake-up call to nations that are not taking their national security seriously, nations that are not spending money on their national security, and Nigeria falls into that realm. Maybe later on, we'll try to do a small analysis, see our defense spending, see whether Nigeria is spending enough. Before we can begin to say whether Nigeria is secure or not, we'll ask ourselves, is Nigeria spending enough? on security, and we'll do a little comparison to other African countries, especially the North African countries, for us to know where we are, what we are doing, what other nations are doing. Then we'll know our expectations. Thank you so far.
No, Commodore, sometimes when we raise this kind of conversation, it looks very far away until it comes close to home. We are around the Gulf of Guinea. We're one of the Anglophone countries. We have Francophones and Anglophone countries on the continent, and the Gulf of Guinea is of interest to anyone who is interested in geopolitics because of the economy of oil. Venezuela, for instance, has the highest reserve in the world, but they produce barely as much as Nigeria does. Over 300 billion barrels of oil in their reserve, although their oil is high in sulfur, it's too thick, it's expensive, the economy is not really working as much for them with all the sanctions that has happened under Maduro. The next attention, we don't know whether it's the Gulf of Guinea or somewhere else, but you can see the interplay of the power guys. Some are even saying it's negotiated release or abduction or capture, whatever name you want to go by. But we're looking at it broadly from that end so that we will know how to put our own house in order. So let's come home, which is more important. As we speak right now, 55 persons have been confirmed dead. Why? Villagers, children, women, innocent people, because some suspected terrorists. Despite the statement of the president when he was presenting the budget, said this year there's no mercy. If you carry gun, you're an enemy of the state. If you go kill people, you're going to be in trouble. Then we are seeing just few days after in Niger State, 55 people dead just like that. What do you make of it?
Okay, thank you. It's very good anytime the president speaks. I like the president talking tough. But are we matching words with action? All this talk boils down to finance, resources. Like we said the other time, there must be a surge of resources if we are serious about dealing with national security. Now, look at a place like Niger State. What are the states doing? The last instance, 300 students were taken off from the school. And during one of the interviews I watched from one of the channels, they said these children were moved with motorcycle, bit by bit, blow by blow. They go and they come, they go and come. And through all those processes, there is no facility or infrastructure in the state, in the country that could picture them. Nobody knew which direction they went. Nobody knew who they were till tomorrow. And that finished, they negotiated their release, and we came back, nothing. And this is a new year. Nobody is talking about how could, in a country, some group of individuals, not even outsiders, not even America, could just swoop on the people, pick whoever they want to pick, pack them together, take them to wherever they want to take them, and nobody knows. And the country is not thinking about that. What is wrong in a place like Nigeria to say every state capital must have a CCTV circuit as a starting point of security? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? How much will it take every state to put a surveillance system in the state capital at least? Then from there, we begin to escalate to the local government areas. What will it cost for the federal government to put CCTV cameras on the highways? So that at least if you begin, like if they begin to even trace this, after they say happen, you trace them to a point, you can begin to say, okay, they went left or right, can begin to analyze they could be in this area or this area. But with all this happening in Nigeria for over 15 years, not one state capital in Nigeria has a surveillance system. The country has not made any improvement on the surveillance system. That today if they carry anybody, we'll still be talking about tracking them, not showing mercy. It's not about talk. Now let's come back to reality. We saw the last, if we take the last 3 years or so, 2024, 2025, and this 2025 appropriations, now we'll see that though defense may seem to carry the bulk of the budget, but when you do an analysis of the budget, you will find out that over 80% of this budget is for overhead and personnel costs. Leaving sometime in 2023, you had less than 10% of the budget for capital. And this capital budget, 10%, you will still have infrastructure, buildings, barrack maintenance, and all those things that are 10%. So at the end of the day, you are having less than 10% or 5% of this budget we are talking about for acquisition of arms and all that. The same thing, if you look at today's, this 2026 budget, you have less than 20% of that budget for capital. And if you take out other things inside, you have less than 10% for ammunition and purchase of arms. for a country that is neck deep inside insecurity. If you compare with the North Africans, the past 3 years now, a country like Algeria has spent between $16 billion to 21. Their 2026 budget is going to about $21 billion for defense. Morocco has is spending between $6 and $9 billion. Egypt is also spending in that region. How much is Nigeria spending? In the last 3 years, our defense budget has come to between 3 and 4 billion. With 4 billion was the highest, what is in 2004, because it was reviewed upward. And out of these $4 billion, less than 10% of it is for purchase of arms.
Commodore, if I may come in for a moment, if you can hear me, Commodore. So what are we dealing with here? Yes. Because we need to be realistic as much as possible when it comes to the issues around spending and being able to, man our security and be the best we can be in terms of protecting the lives and property of our people. The reality is that the government will always say there's a policy of funds. So we have a budget of about $40 billion as we speak before the National Assembly. About $10 billion of that in dollars is going to debt servicing. But a chunk of it, which is the biggest allocation in terms of sector, is the defense, which is about 5.4, which you have, I think you've talked about whether it's 3 point something or so billion dollars. So on one hand, is it a problem of prioritization or it's a problem of paucity of funds?
I think, purely speaking, it's a problem of prioritization. Because when any country comes under insecurity, the type of security challenges that we're having, which
oh dear. All right. We hope we can get the Commodore back. He's trying to make a very, very solid point. Commodore, can you hear me? Commodore, if you can unmute your device so that we can hear you. For a moment, we were not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, fantastic. Please go ahead. We didn't hear what you were saying, so please can you just rephrase?
Okay. So what I'm saying that is issue of prioritization. Because when a nation comes under the kind of situation we do, there's what we call securitization. You securitize. And that is where security takes precedence over every other thing. Countries like Algeria that is not even facing the type of challenge we are facing are spending up to 10% of GDP on defense. So what are we talking about? Then we are neck deep in insecurity, we are spending less than 1% of our GDP in defense. And we have the luxury of building fancy projects, which we call legacy projects. In the country, when people are not safe, the country is not safe, and you dare to do projects, what project could be better than the security of the country? You build bridges, build flyover, build castle in the air. One cruise missile brings down everything. You wake up tomorrow, everything will be down. So to me, I think we must securitize. Securitization is the issue. Security comes before every other thing.
All right, Commodore, my apologies. Let me bring you my...
Individual cannot be safe. So government must move money and allocate a good chunk of resources for defense of this country and the people.
Let me bring in my second guest. We've been trying to get him in, but due to network, Professor David is of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, UNILAG. Prof, thank you for coming on the program. If you can unmute your device, Prof, so we can hear you, sir. Just unmute. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, fantastic. We've been waiting. So, Prof, we're trying to create a nexus between the dynamics of geopolitics, as we've seen it, and the need to strengthen our national security, because at the end of the day, it is what you do at home that matters the most on how you'll be seen from outside in. Unfortunately for Africa, we don't have nuclear powers to be able to come up on the table with a balance of terror in that sense. So our position on the table is quite limited. But let's talk about home and what we need to do. The Commander has been speaking about, I asked him a direct question, the reality of there's not much money in our coffers and the need to secure our people. Is it a question of prioritization, or we can admit there's paucity of funds? Where do you stand, Prof?
Well, I think the issue revolves more around Yeah, prioritization, that is correct. But also judicious use of resources. We have so many problems. I heard the Commodore talk about human security. You need resources to be able to provide human security. Human security goes beyond protection from physical violence. It talks about taking care of the needs of the people, the basic needs of the people. You need resources to do that. And so if all the money goes into physical defense, then the human security he talked about will be impossible. So to my mind, two things, prioritizing. The defense needs to have more resources. But what is devoted to defense also needs to be judiciously utilized. We've seen, wastes. We've seen corruption, in the way defense budget has been administered. If all of those things are removed, we'll be able to do a lot more, a lot better in terms of providing security for our people. I agree with the Commodore entirely that security is important. Section 14 of the Constitution, subsection 2, is very clear about that, that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. If there is no security, everything else, becomes irrelevant. So, those two things, prioritizing and judicious use of resources, because we don't have enough, really. You are just talking about $40 billion for 230 million people. That amount is infinitesimally small. So the government has to, juggle here and there to ensure that different sectors get enough so that the country can move on.
Prof, let me stay with you for a moment from the diplomatic end. As far as this is concerned, we've seen a fallout of failures around our region, resulting in increase and surge in insecurity in our country. So if we were to frame our foreign policy direction and tone, what should we be saying right now?
Well, our foreign policy over the years has focused on Africa as the centerpiece. It has also focused on multilateralism, that is engaging with other countries of the world through international organizations. It has also focused on maintenance of global peace and security and support for it, which is why Nigeria has committed so much to peacekeeping. Of course, it has also focused on Pan-Africanism, and that is understandable considering the vastness of Nigeria's population on the African continent and the large number of people of black color in Nigeria. All of these have been cardinal issues in Nigeria's foreign policy. Of course, we have also had economic diplomacy, that is using diplomacy to advance economic interest. That was introduced, from the 80s. That has also been very important. So what needs to happen is we don't have any problems really with, the foreign policy objectives. It is the implementation now that has had issues. We have not been as vibrant. Some other African countries are saying that they are now more assertive than they used to be because Nigeria has been quiet. Vibrancy, in the conduct of foreign policy is a major issue that needs to be, addressed. And then we also need, more stability at home, because at the end of the day, what the country is able to do abroad is determined by the conditions at home. When the economy is down, when infrastructure is mediocre, when there is instability and all of these things at home, there is not more a country can do in the pursuit of ambitious foreign policy objectives on the outside. So these are the things. And of course, we need to engage with other countries of the world so that there can be stability. And of course, Africa needs to come together. When Africa has done well at the international level was always when Africa came together. African countries, 54 of them, are too small, too weak to be able to make an impact on their own. So when they come together and present a common front, we're able to achieve a lot. And Nigeria should be at the forefront of mobilizing African interests to be able to speak with one voice on the global scale. These are the things we need really to be able to do our objectives and fulfill them.
Let me take a Commodore. Commodore, as we begin to wind down, let's talk about what role the issue around the president has shown his resolve that state police has to be. It looks like it's going to be, given the fact that a lot of the party governors are now in his party. He has a good majority in the Senate and the House of Reps. So that looks like good to go. How far-reaching would that be? And the issue of border security. We've been talking about it. The former CDS, now Minister of Defense, has spoken about it, the issue of border security, because it feels to me that there are so many moving parts. The issue around national security and maintaining it at premium level to be able to make Nigerians feel very safe is not one way. There are hydra-headed issues that must be treated within those tentacles. What do you make of national border security and state police, and how can it help?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with the border security, like you said. We have said it like now. We have seen that the threat is moving, not just only internal, where we talk about non-state actors and all that. We have transnational threats. The threat that's blighting Nigeria now, national security, is mostly transnational. Most of the people attacking us, like the resurgence of the Islamic State terrorists, they are grossly transnational. And if you don't fix border, you cannot make progress, because as we stand today, if you eliminate all the Boko Haram and all the insurgents in the country, just give them 1 month, they resurge. From outside the country, they regroup. And they will come back. So until you address the issue of border security, our borders must be encumbered. They must be walled. The greater part of it must be walled when you come under instances like that. I've given instances before. Nigeria is about 4,200 kilometer land borders. India is about 17,000 kilometers. It is fenced. Most of it are walled with security gadgets, with roads. The border, India's border with Bangladesh alone is 4,200, which is 100 kilometers more than Nigeria's border. It is fenced on the Indian side, fenced on the Bangladesh side. India has about over 200,000 border security men on that front alone. And this is how to secure a country. Since over 15 years ago, when we had the last transborder attack in Mumbai, we have never had any such in India. Today, if you have a transborder attack in India, it's like a taboo. And that didn't just come by wishful thinking. We saw in Israel during the second Intifada uprising, when suicide bombers were crossing from Gaza into Jerusalem, bombing areas, they put up a wall. And that is from that day to today. 2,700 kilometers of the area between Morocco and the Polisario front and all those police wall and fenced. This is what works. So security, all
right, come on. Let me bring in the prof as we wind up. My apologies. Let me, prof, the same question. How much of state police, how much of border security can help us nip this in the bud? If you can do it in 1.5 minutes, sir.
State police will help because, you know, just like all politics is local, all crime is also local. So if it is well organized, well managed, state police will help because it will help to deal with, you know, violence at the local level. What it calls for is maturity on the part of governors, such that, you know, it is not abused, because the fear has always been that it might be abused. But given the kind of security we have, security challenges we have at the moment, state police is just, you know, will be very useful when well managed, such that it will even help to prevent, you know, crime, because you know, it should be able to make possible to detect crime and prevent their occurrence before they break out, instead of waiting for, you know, police from very far away. So that is well noted, and that's well supported. And countries that have done well in maintaining security, you know, the policing at the local level has been a major contributor to all that. Then border security, yes, that is needed. Although, you know, we have always talked about having borderless border. It is better if we had that, but that is assuming that, you know, crime will not be, you know, as vast as we have had it now. But now we have crime that is multifaceted, you know, and transnational. And so, yeah, you know, manning the borders very well, maybe putting walls and all that. Whatever will make inflow of crime from another country to go down tremendously would be welcome. So to that extent, I agree with the Commodore that that is an option that we need to explore so as to prevent and minimize crime in the country as much as possible.
Professor David, our is Vice of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. Commodore Promise Dapa is a retired naval officer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for having me.
We'll switch gears now and move on to the politics of Rivers State. It looks like Governor Wike-Fubara and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike have now resumed hostilities. Maybe this is politics drama part 2. We do not know. But we're exploring that conversation when we come back after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let me bring in my next set of guests as we discuss the politics of Rivers State. I like to call it the unending politics of Rivers State. Like politics of Rivers State is calendar year, every other day happens. So let me bring in the senator who represented Rivers Southeast, Senator Olaka Wogu, joining us virtually, and also bring in Mr. Yaye Theophilus, who is an IYC leader. Gentlemen, thank you so much for Yaye Theophilus, who is an IYC leader. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start with you, distinguished. You know, after we saw the peace deal, the cameras, the conversation, my colleague Shenwa had even interviewed the honorable minister, asked him what is the deal. Where I say, you don't know, don't bother about it. We're good, no problem. We saw all of that. We saw some level of reconciliation, but right now it looks like the fireworks are back again. Senator, what is going on with the Rivers politics?
Okay, Jeff, good evening and good evening to all the viewers and a happy new year to everyone. I think basically what's happening, as unfortunate as it is the consequence of when leaders do not keep their words and their commitment. Recall that there was initially a first agreement that Mr. President brokered because of lack of adherence to that agreement by the governor of the state. That agreement packed up. They said the president had no right to do that, even if we all subjected ourselves to that agreement. That's the 8-point plan. And these events that developed out of it culminated even in the Supreme Court judgment that said there was no governance in Rivers State. And then Mr. President had to impose to save the state from descending into anarchy. Mr. President had to impose the emergency. After the emergency or during that period, there were discussions across the state to find political harmony. And when the leaders amongst ourselves agreed, we all took ourselves to Mr. President. And again, another understanding was brokered, which Mr. President was like a guarantor to that understanding. It's also been adhered to in the breach again. The governor is breaching it. He knows he's breaching it. And it's the reason why you're seeing what is happening is strictly the lack of adherence to agreements. And you cannot run a state like Rivers State if you are not capable of adhering to the commitments that you make. It's a complex state. It's a peculiar state. Most people do not understand. They think Rivers State is just any place. It's a place where there are so many diverse people and interests, and to put all of them together under one roof, there are understandings by which we move. Unfortunately, all the agreements have been flouted by the governor at one time or the other.
Senator, my apologies because of time. My apologies. If you can keep our responses short so that I can ask as many questions as possible. I'll come to Mr. Theophilus in just a moment. What is this agreement? From what we can gather, please correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like there was an agreement that similarly Wike-Fubara will not be running for second term. Is that the bone of contention here?
Well, that is part of it, because that was clearly Wike-Fubara himself spoke by himself. I was in that meeting with the president, and the governor spoke himself. And he said, this is the agreement we have reached. There were a number of issues. There were contentions. There were people who were seen to be disruptive to the polity. They were to be excused from the process. They were the understanding of what role the governor would play and what role the minister would play for the harmony of the state, as we agreed amongst ourselves. And the governor himself affirmed those understandings, including his own commitment. Recall that he went to his people in church and told them that his spirit had left even government house at that time. And he told them that they don't even know what his Oga had done for him, which was the FCT minister. And he said a few things which alluded to the fact that he was working out something, and the people, in fact, he was almost aggressive to his people, that there was nothing like same movement and all that, they should stop. So coming back now to build another group and to start tensing the whole place up, and there were core things that the state is taking in direct conflict with the agreement he wished. And all right, it's up to him.
All right, Senator, distinguished, I'll come back to you in just a moment. Let me bring in Theophilus, because I don't know whether I actually answered my question. I was direct with my question, but you answered it in a way, but I'm trying to hold on to something. Mr. Theophilus, you heard the senator said there was an agreement. I put it straight to him to say, did the agreement include Senator Governor Wike-Fubara not running for a second term? Because we can only speculate. We're not in those rooms. What do you know about this?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me appreciate the senator for telling the world that there were some forms of agreement between the governor and the leader of Rivers State, who happens to be the FCT minister. But basically, those agreements were done while they were in the PDP. Mr. President, as the leader of the country and the leader of APC, when the former speaker or the incumbent speaker of Rivers State made a declaration that he has cross-carpet to the APC and that the PDP is taking them to court, what was the statement of Mr. President? That he has new sons that have come to his party, that there is no way he will deny them. He will accommodate them and also allow them to operate as APC members in Rivers State before they went back to tell the world that they didn't cross-carpet to the APC at then. Today, the governor of Rivers State has moved to the APC as a new son of Mr. President. And if Mr. President feels that I have a new son, and in the APC constitution, we believe that every first-term governors are given the free will to go for a second term, as being enshrined in the APC constitution. I believe that the people of Rivers State should abide to that. It's what Mr. FCT minister is doing in Rivers State and what even this senator have just said. We have also come to understand that in politics, so many persons ought not to be in the political space for corridor. Like what our senator just said. It's very clear that Rivers State, some persons are now turning politics into business. Ask my senator. I don't want to take it because I'm not holding brief for the governor of Rivers State. But as a youth leader that has the interest of stability and peace in the Niger Delta, Rivers State inclusive, why would you say that there were agreements in the previous process of those agreements as a people representative representing the people in the Senate? Did you went to his constituency to call for a meeting, town hall meeting, that look, this is what and what we don't want from the person? That's never happened. These people just go to the Abia Palo where they are sharing biscuit, sit down and believe that they will just come and impose things on Rivers people. Rivers people, the masses have made it very clear. Team is their mandate. And if he's coming for second term, they will be giving him the needed support. So any person that is not ready, don't even go. Wike is the leader of the PDP in Rivers State, and at the level of the national, you should float a candidate from the PDP and go and challenge. Why will you tell somebody not to contest when the party which he has cross-carpet to has given him the opportunity?
All right.
That every first.
All right, Mr. Theophilus, let me come in here. Distinguished, I'll come back to you, but I'll need to take a break. So he's made a point that perhaps there was an agreement. I don't know. We're not in the room. Distinguished, you say you were in those rooms when those agreements were made. But that agreement was when they were in the PDP. Now it's joined the APC. In fact, I'm seeing a statement credited to the APC National Secretary. So I can't quote what was said because I'm not sure. But it looks like the National Working Committee and the national leadership of the APC want the man for run for a second term. So I'm going to ask you some questions about this issue of agreement prior to his former party and now his new party. But that will be after this break. Join us again.
And cable, great quality, now with the new look. The Igwe Council of a Patriotic Union
and the entire good people of Oba, Idemli South local government area,
cordially invite you to the Maiden of Fala Festival of His Majesty Igwe Engineers Augustine C. Emelobe KSC GON.
Date Friday 9th January 2026, time 9 a.m. Coronation Cum Maiden of Fala at Merchants of Life School, Oba. Come and celebrate with us.
Announcers Sir Chief Ekene Ebuzeme Ikenge Bubedike, Chairman of Fala Planning Committee,
Engineer Thony Uzejiofor, President General of Oba,
and Chief Sir BM Onyeka Ichiokum II Onowapa.
Welcome back. Here with me, distinguished Senator Lakan Wogo, who represented Rivers State in the Senate, and also Alai Theophilos, an IYC leader. Senator, I was coming to you. He has raised the point, but let me go back. In addition to your response to him, I guess you heard what he said. His point is that maybe that agreement existed, perhaps, when he was in the PDP, but now he's in the fold of the president. And I'm seeing statements credited to some leaders of the APC saying, look, the man is good to go. He has a right to whatever ambition he wants. But I don't know whether you're asking me directly, whether he clearly stated that similarly, Fubara will not be running for second term. Now, if he chooses to run, then what happens?
Well, I think basically, first of all, let me react to my colleague on the show now. I will encourage him to, as much as possible, refrain from gutter language when he talks people sitting in beer parlor and all that. These matters are bigger than that level. I don't know who you are, but it's the interference of certain people too that have made this reverse issue almost intractable. They don't know the facts. They come on TV and they start talking. If agreements are reached at the level of Mr. President and continually somebody breaches them, then the person that expects to be trusted. If you have problem with what is going on, then you should query why is it happening. When Fubara was brought out as candidate, you were not there. You had nothing to do with that process. And there were reasons why Fubara was brought up. It was because he was to continue the great works Wike had done. Wike had built Rivers State like no other. And we are all patriots. We want Rivers State to be a better place. There is no governance now in Rivers State. Nothing is happening because the governor puts himself in a place where he has to fight political battles rather than run government, which was the understanding. Nobody's interfering with him in the running of government. Concentrate on your government. If you want to do politics, very well. But understand that you committed yourself to understand this on the political front. This battle, most of you characterize it, Minister Wike versus Fubara. No. The battle got to the Supreme Court. It was between the State Assembly and the governor. is between people who should help us administer the state. He completely emasculated the State Assembly to the level that the Supreme Court berated him for being an autocrat. And this current problem started with the State Assembly again. It is him who has refused to run government. Instead, he tries to play politics and is unable to do it well. You reach understanding before Mr. President. You didn't keep it at first. Second time, you were on your knees asking for people to show you understanding. Again, after that, he was insulting his own supporters, if you recall. Before the lifting of the state of emergency, he was shouting on his own supporters. Now he gets back to office and he's doing exactly the same thing. Because certain characters will not let him be what he's supposed to be.
Distinguished, my apologies, distinguished. I do not want to cut your trail of thought. I would like an express answer, since we have the privilege of having you as being in these rooms. Did Siminala Wike-Fubara say he will not be running for second term as a condition for peace? You haven't given me that answer.
I would have loved him, or maybe with due respect, Mr. President or the minister, to be the people to answer this. But I can tell you, as somebody who was at that meeting, I heard him say clearly, because after the meeting with the State Assembly and also with some elders, based on the prevailing circumstance at that time, he came up and he said clearly, I shall have no interest in any further elections, I shall not run again. And they were parts of the basis for which a political solution was reached in the state. And I recall, those who want to jump into this matter, you are free because it's politics, anybody can come in. But dignity is everything. If a man has integrity and he goes to reach understanding, he will keep it. Don't agree to what you cannot keep. And when you agree to something, keep it. Otherwise, how can people work with you? So when you see other people reacting in certain ways, they are proper people. But in good conscience, they brought this man and made him governor. Continually, everything has been in the breach. And this has nothing to do with money.
All right.
It's basically about integrity and how to make the state a better place. Our commitment.
All right, distinguished. Because of time, my apologies, distinguished. I will need to cut in again. My apologies, distinguished. I will need to cut in again because of time. Mr. Theophilus, as we begin to wind down, so when it comes to Nyesom Wike, there's a love and hate relationship for him. There are people that love him, adore him. There are people that hate him, that don't want to see him. But he has the popular phrase, agreement is agreement. There are people that say, why do you even have a business deciding for a governor? But if there's an agreement, there is an agreement. As Senator Nwogu has said, he made an agreement that, look, I'm not interested in this anymore. Let's just get this over with within this time. Is that not a fair reason for the minister to be holding on to his position and grandstanding, by the way, because of what he heard the governor say, as said by the senator?
You are to a larger extent correct. Agreement ought to be an agreement. That is if what you are agreeing to is within your power. You know, if you want to give someone your land, then that land is not attached to your brothers and other relatives. You can give it freely. But the mandate in question was given to the governor by Rivers people. And the Rivers people are telling him that he is doing marvelously well and that you shouldn't allow just 1% of those that believe that they are the power that be in Rivers State to tell him not to contest. So they should go and fight the Rivers people, those that have given the governor the mandate. That is by the way. Then secondly, you know, we are practicing a democratic system of government where leadership, governors, assembly, governor, and all the rest are elected based on majority. Simple majority. So when these people are telling you that somebody made him governor, you begin to wonder if at all the governor of a state is now an appointed office where somebody will just sit in his house and appoint. This is the same person that we are talking about was fighting against the incumbents at the time where some of we transfer our polling units to Rivers State to make sure that we vote for Wike.
It's really bad.
We were believing that there were issues at that particular point in time, and he needed our support. Today, that same man has made another person through party primaries and general election to be governor, and he's telling us that because they take poll, and through the party selection process, he played a pivotal role. For that singular reason, he appointed him. Can he provide 6 million votes in Rivers State? Rivers people voted for this man in question. So if he has any issue, let him as an individual float a candidate. In fact, he should bring an independent party to challenge the man and let the Rivers people decide to do the
All right, Ms. Ala,
yes.
We're totally out of time.
In fact, even this is action that is carrying out.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we're totally...
He doesn't want Mr. President to succeed.
We're totally out of time, gentlemen. It's an ongoing conversation. Senator, I wish I could take your last word, but I'm told I do not have any much time on the show today.
Can I just say something?
10 seconds. 10 seconds is all I have, Senator. 10 seconds.
First of all, he's an IYC man and a German. Fubara is governor today, even if he comes from the least local government by population in Rivers State because of Nyesom Wike. Now, in spite of everything that has happened, Nyesom Wike has been calm. He had gone through the whole process. The court came up, the president came up. Meetings were held with Mr. President.
Senator, I need to button.
President.
Yes. I need to button.
You can't
my apologies, Senator.
Agreements and treat them like you didn't go anywhere, like they mean nothing.
Senator, I must thank you so much for coming on the program. My total apologies because I need to go now. Senator Olaka Wogo is Senator who represented River State in the Nigerian Senate. Also, Alai Theophilus, a leader in IYC. Gentlemen, my apologies for the time, but that's the much we can take. Thank you for coming on the program. And that's it on the program. We wish you a very beautiful week ahead. Make the most of it. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.